Welcome back, Leominsterites. This is your state representative, NATALIE Higgins, here for our fall episode. We're filming it right at the end of August, and I could not be more thrilled to be joined with one of the powerhouse nurses from Leominster's Birthing Center, Tara. Thank you for so much for coming to spend some time. I know you've been talking about all of this for probably too long, and this is not how you wanted to spend your summer.
Nope.
But I'm hoping that we can give the Leominster viewers an update of kind of where we are in the process. It's a fast-moving process, and I think some of the hardest things for Leominster residents and the surrounding communities has been kind of how is this happening? How is it moving so quickly? We just found out about it Memorial Day weekend, and now we're looking at a potential closure of the unit next month.
Right.
So could you talk a little bit about how you came to Leominster Hospital? How long have you been working in the birthing center and your role there?
Yeah. So I was born at Leominster Hospital, as I know you were too, and I had both my babies there. But I started working there 8 years ago. I had trained at a Boston area hospital, and I'm from this area, and quickly realized the difference. I loved the big hospital, but I realized how much more time and compassion you can give your patients in the smaller community hospitals, and you're serving your community. So that's how I came to Leominster. And I've been on the birthing center for the past 3 years. Birthing center was always really hard to get into as a nurse. You have to kind of work your way up seniority-wise to get a job there. So I've been here for 3 years, and I would love to retire here.
Yeah, and I think that is what is incredible, meeting so many of the nurses from the birthing center, just how long they have been helping families deliver their babies right here in this community.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about it. I was born there 35 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's really concerning for a lot of us who are hoping to have kids that we're not going to be able to give birth in our home community at our local hospital, and what options are going to be left, because this has been a pattern of closing birthing centers over the last decade, and I don't know that folks realize that in Massachusetts.
I don't think I realized it until this. I honestly didn't, and they've said over the past decade it's been 11 closures.
This will be the 11th.
Yeah, so that's kind of scary, and it is. You're right. It's a pattern, and it's not going to stop unless something changes in the law. So
yeah, Rep. Meg Kilcoyne was my guest last month, and we really talked about, you know, we hold ourselves out as a reproductive health care champion across the country, and we should be really proud of that. But there's this other history of letting these services close and creating these deserts that we just saw the Department of Public Health put out a report that kind of confirmed what we suspected, but severe maternal morbidity has doubled in that same time.
And that is insane. We should not be going backwards. We should be moving forward. So,
So you all have been working with the community, with local elected officials, really to tell the story. And I'm so thankful for all of the nurses and the frontline healthcare workers who have been stepping up and sharing that this unit is safe, it is saving lives, and it is incredibly necessary.
Yeah.
And I think something that has been hard for us to wrap our heads around is the hospital's not coming forward saying, you know, there isn't a need. They're just saying that they don't want to figure out how to staff it.
Correct.
And that those staffing challenges, we, with your help, have really been able to debunk a lot of those allegations of staffing challenges.
Yeah, I think so. The hospital had initially said it was a nursing shortage, which we could quickly come back and say that was not true. It does seem that they kind of put a hiring freeze on over the past 6 to 12 months. They started doing it, so they orchestrated it to make it look like there was a nursing shortage. And then they kind of moved on to OB providers, which we are working alongside the obstetric providers currently, and we have heard from all of them that that was not true. We just heard actually last week that one of the moonlighters, they call them, so he works at the hospital just overnight to do deliveries, so not at the outpatient for prenatal and whatnot. He was in the process of filling out paperwork to come on full-time at Leominster. And he told that directly to one of our techs that had gotten a job elsewhere where he works. So that was, I mean, and things we already knew. We knew there was already plans in place. We knew that people were willing to work here, but that came directly from him, that he was in the process, and then got the call, never mind, we're closing.
Yeah, so we jumped right in, but to kind of put the timeline in place. The hospital has to announce an intention to close what could be an essential service is 120 days before. So that was that notice that they gave right before Memorial Day weekend.
Yep.
And then there was another kind of process they had to follow 90 days out, and then that set the essential services hearing.
Yes.
And we had the essential services hearing on July 24th, and I have never been more proud of the stories and the fact that we filled those 4 hours of
that
testimony.
Was amazing. It was amazing.
Are there any thoughts that you have around that process and around the DPH hearing and the community coming out? Can you share any reactions to how the community has stepped up?
I think it was amazing. I was so pleased to see like how many members of the community, not just in the nurses and other workers at the hospital, but it was like people from all over, Leominster, Fitchburg, Lunenburg, Templeton, Gardner, everywhere were coming out and standing up against this. And it was amazing. And I left there feeling so good. I'm like, I know that we already thought DPH would say we were essential because we know we are. But I don't think there was any doubt in our mind leaving there that DPH would deem us essential. So then after that, they have 15?
They had 14 days to kind of follow up with their questions to...
So DPH had to respond within 14 days, so they had to come up with questions. I went through every DPH essential service letter on that website, and the highest amount of additional questions they had from a hearing was 7. We had 13, and they were detailed paragraphs with some pretty interesting information. They wanted to know, what would it take to keep this unit open, which they've never said before.
Right.
So it felt great. I wasn't shocked. We knew that we were essential. But I think a lot of the community thought if they said we were essential, we were staying open. But the power is not in their hands. It's just part of the process.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that that strong of a letter and that strong of a reaction from the community will gain the attention of someone that can step in and kind of help us stop this closure.
Right.
But as of right now, DPH,
Yeah.
they did that was a great letter.
So to be clear, the Department of Public Health has never prevented the closure of an essential service, but what they have done is kind of exercise some tools to push the hospital system to create better access plans for folks post-closure. And so we're really, as a community and as community leaders and healthcare staff, asking the Department of Public Health and ultimately Governor Maura Healey to do something unprecedented, but to stem the tide of these closures of these maternal healthcare sites. Because, and we've had this conversation with the hospital administration, with DPH, this is different, right? It's a birthing center. Time matters. We have a community that doesn't have access to public transportation like the greater Boston area is, and I feel like we're often telling the story of Central and Western Mass and the Cape and the Islands, that the challenges are just that much more insurmountable for our families. And one of the things that I had hoped that the hospital would discuss and entertain, and it's a question I asked them, they're asking 600 families to go find a new place to give birth.
Per year.
Right. And some of these families got the notice in the middle of their pregnancy, right, and had to scramble to find another plan, and I cannot imagine that trauma. One of the perks of being a part of the UMass Memorial Healthcare System, we were told as a community, was we get the benefits of being a part of a larger network. Like, there's more staffing, there's more capacity, there's more services. And my question for Dr. Dixon, the head of UMass Memorial, was, isn't it more reasonable to ask a half a dozen OBs to come up to Leominster and provide coverage while you figure out a longer term solution than to ask 600 families who don't necessarily have access to a car or gas to be able to do that? I don't know, I'm guessing an OBGYN probably has access to a car and gas money.
Correct.
Just guessing based on socioeconomic status. But for so many of our constituents, that's not a reality. And I'm worried about what's happening for Leominster residents, right, as the Leominster representative, but what about the folks north of us, right? It's going to take a whole lot of time to get to Worcester or Concord for Leominster, but for someone from Ashby, someone from Pepperell, we're putting them that much further away from an access point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the other concerns is that the hospital has put out that the backup plan will be the emergency room. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what happens? Because people do show up to the emergency room already in labor.
Correct.
You might not necessarily have time to get them up to the L&D floor.
Right.
So you're facing that already, but at least you all can come down and provide that expertise.
And we do. It's been happening since they announced the closure. We've just had a lot of crazy things happening. Like the universe is telling us we need to be experiencing these things to prove to someone. So I myself have had to go down to the emergency room multiple times throughout the summer for deliveries that are happening in vehicles, in the parking lot, etc. The emergency room is already overloaded.
Absolutely. We all know that as community members,
exactly.
right?
You hear this horror stories. I waited for hours. People are sick. Ever since the pandemic, people are sicker. That's just the facts I'm seeing in the hospital. So going down to the emergency room for an emergent delivery or someone that had already delivered, it's me as the nursery nurse, an L&D nurse, the obstetrician, and the pediatrician. So the four of us, and then respiratory therapy would also be there, who will be there after September. But the 4 people I mentioned first will no longer be there. So when we go down now, the emergency room staff is they're scared. They're looking around at us like, what can I do to help? They're so wonderful. They know how to deal with emergent situations. They are skilled at that. But they are they're fearing for lives and they're fearing for their jobs because they didn't go into labor and delivery or maternal nursing for a reason. They went into emergency nursing. So aside from the skill set, the hospital is saying that they've all been trained and that they can handle any sort of obstetrical emergency and any neonatal emergency, which we can tell you is not true. They've had four months, and I can tell you nobody has been trained in all of those things. They're still scrounging around looking for someone to train them.
Sure.
And then the other piece of it is they don't have the equipment. So the emergent situations that I've had to run down for, we're scattering around looking for things because they don't have them readily available. They don't have the correct the same warmer we use upstairs. They have a much older one, which I'm sure their plan would be to take our newer ones. They don't have all the things on the code cart that we would use for a neonatal resuscitation. So aside from the skills, it's the equipment. They are not equipped to deliver a baby or to resuscitate a baby or deal with a crazy obstetrical emergency should it happen. It's not just your everyday situation. These are things that you need a lot of skills for, a lot of education for, and a lot of different equipment for, and they don't have the room for it, and they don't have what they need for it.
Yeah, I think that has been really challenging for us to imagine, like, okay, you want to close this unit, hospital administration, like, what is your plan? And that there have been 4 months to start implementing a plan. In the letter response that they gave to the Department of Public Health in response to the Essential Services hearing, they admitted that they didn't put some of the documents into other languages beyond English. We are 3 months into this closure process and they still haven't translated basic documents to give notice to a community that is more vulnerable because English is not their first language.
Correct.
And so while the hospital is assuring us that folks aren't going to show up to Leominster Hospital in an emergency, the most at-risk pregnancies are the ones that are probably going to show up in the emergency, right? Because something went wrong, something's not right, and they need help immediately. They're not going to go down to Worcester. They can't get to Concord.
We have people coming in all the time. I called my OB. I'm high risk. They told me to come into Worcester. I didn't feel I could make it there, so I came here. And we have to deliver those babies because they are not stable to be transferred. So it's just, it happens and it's going to continue to happen. But it's sad that we won't be there to handle these situations because we are able to stabilize and we are able to save lives. But if we're gone, who knows what's going to happen?
So I want to talk a little bit about the efforts that the Mass Nurses Association and the community have been doing kind of post the Essential Services hearing. You've been keeping a lot of the community just awareness alive with standouts. And so those are continuing to happen, right?
Yes, we have a couple more standouts planned up till now.
Yeah, so if you see a standout and you want to participate, like, please join. They're
Yeah.
easy. They're easy.
They're
You can
easy.
hold signs. Folks bring them.
Signs are provided.
And it's a really great way to connect with folks and to kind of just build awareness to make sure the community knows this is happening.
Right.
And build support for the unit because I really do believe every day I have more hope
Yeah.
that we can make something happen that has never happened before
Yeah.
because we absolutely need these services here in these Twin Cities and
Yeah.
the surrounding communities. And I cannot imagine a world in which we're asking families to go to Worcester and Concord.
Nope. I can't.
So, Tara, are there any other ways that folks can kind of plug into the work that you're doing, support the nurses, support everyone who's trying to show up and make sure that this unit stays open? I know a lot of the OBs are committed to continuing to deliver babies at Leominster Hospital. They have no intention of going anywhere, and they're working on recruiting new OBs to their practice because exactly what you started out talking about, the importance of working in a community hospital and being able to spend time with your patients.
Right.
They're recruiting doctors who want to work in the community that their residents live.
Right, and their families live. And I think that's a piece of it that the hospital keeps saying, no doctors want to work at community hospitals because they want to gain all the experience at the bigger hospitals. But as a nurse, working at a bigger hospital, I did see a lot more medical conditions, but as far as hands-on, there's so many more people around, so you're not gaining the experience that you could gain at a smaller hospital. So I just think that reasoning was crazy for them to use. But as far as supporting us, we do have the Facebook page of Leave Labor in Leominster, which we'll keep up to date with all the media, with all the standouts, any other things we're planning on doing.
Outreach opportunities, actions.
And we love hearing everyone's stories. We had recently asked for expectant mothers who were planning to deliver in Leominster after September 23rd to reach out to us because we were hoping to get some more information about that process because come to find out, some of them said we weren't notified by the hospital. We were found out through a Facebook post. So we do want people to go on there, share your stories, reach out to us. We have some different forms set up. We still have the petition going so they can sign the petition. We have a form so they can reach out directly to the governor. And I know people are starting to get little email responses back saying, thank you, we will send this to who it needs to go to. And just making noise. We've also put it out there. You can email Eric Dixon, you can email Paul McKinnon, you can email Steve Roach, just all these people that are at the top of the hospital that are not listening to us, but we're hoping they'll listen to someone. So all of their emails are there.
Awesome.
So just making noise and
Do
standing
you still
with
have more
us.
lawn signs to get out in the community?
Yes, we have more lawn signs. We can get more lawn signs. I know they're everywhere now. I see them everywhere. We have one nurse, she literally spends most of her days driving around and delivering them to people's lawns if they ask for them. So
That's awesome.
And we have them in Spanish as well. So yeah, those are there. If you do want one, reach out to us on Facebook and we'll make sure we can get them to you.
So lots of ways to get involved if you want, and the time crunch is on. The hospital could close the birthing center on September 23rd if they decide to go forward. We're hoping to do everything that we can to get them. The easiest solution is for the hospital to change their mind, to hear from the community, hear how just essential these services are, hear from the community leaders that we're all ready to show up and do whatever we can to give them the resources they need. But we really need to understand why they want to close this unit, because I just don't buy that it's staffing challenges. Every other healthcare field is having challenges with staffing. Every other workplace is having staffing challenges. You know, a friend of mine runs a food pantry in Leominster. They don't close the doors if they're out of food or down staff, right? Like they figure it out.
Yeah.
They show up. I was a rape crisis counselor for a decade. If we were down staff, you did not turn survivors away. You figured it out.
Right.
And so I admittedly, I think that this is a really important fight, not just for the birthing center, but for the state of healthcare in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
That we have a hospital that's using staffing challenges to close something as essential to a community as a birthing center. I'm so proud of the way that we have shown up as a community in Twin Cities United and the whole North Central Mass community to say, no, Like, we don't accept this reality.
Yeah, this whole process has been so, like, people keep saying, what are you going to do? Where will you work? I'm like, I am not doing this for my job. I will find a job. I don't care. I am so invested in this community and just thinking, like, I see what could happen, and I'm so scared for the community. And for healthcare, I do think that this is a really good time for everyone to open their eyes and see that it's not in our control. It's in these few people in hospitals' control, and something needs to change. Like, I hate that we're being the example of it for our situation, but I think it's going to open a lot of people's eyes to see how it's working. And I know that there's a hospital in Massachusetts that published something recently with us saying we were having the same issues as far as staffing challenges, and we offered these crazy things to get new obstetric providers in. We'd pay off some loan. Like, she's like, we never even brought it to the table, and this was their CEO.
Yeah.
We never even brought it to the table that we would close that unit.
Yeah.
And I just wish that's where we were at, because they never tried to do anything. They never met with us. They never put in the effort. And we were, all of us nurses would have helped. And
you've been trying.
Would have helped, right? We had been trying, because we saw some room for improvement as far as getting more patients in. We wanted to market the unit more. We have a huge, beautiful unit. We wanted someone to come in and take pictures and put it on the website, because that hasn't been updated in years. And it was just like constant roadblock, and we're like, what is going on? I obtained grant money to get the queen size postpartum beds, which I thought was really cool. As a new mom, I would have loved having a bigger bed to share with my baby and my husband to like bond.
Right.
And that was something I was passionate about, and I got the grant money for it. All they had to do was literally, I gave them where to order the beds, how much the beds cost, what you needed to do, filled it all out. They just had to submit it. And that I fought for that for a year, and it just never got done. Great idea. Yeah, awesome. Sounds good. Never got done. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
We were willing to help. We were willing to put in the work. The community would have put in the work. I mean, look where we are. We have this is crazy how much support we have, and it's just sad that they're not willing to see that and see that we could make this such a great place to give birth and to get your care. But hopefully something will change.
Yeah. So I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to come on the show. I know you're wearing many hats right now, and this is one that has taken over a whole lot of your life. And on behalf of the whole community, thank you to you and all of the nurses at Leominster Hospital who are fighting.
But thank you. You have done a lot for us, and we all know it, and we appreciate it. And all the others, state reps and senators and everyone that's been so involved. I mean, we're so thankful, and we couldn't be doing this without you. We are a great team. We're making this what it is, and I thank you for having us.
We have a sign in both of our offices that have, they're two slightly different ones, but they basically say we can solve all the problems. The impossible just takes a little longer. And we have those in our offices to remind us we're dealing with big, huge challenges every single day. And this is a solvable problem. I think that has been the part that has made me just so frustrated about the entire process along the way. Like, this is solvable. Staffing is a solvable problem. We can figure it out. If it's OBs, hey, you probably saw that trend happening for a while. We have UMass Medical School where we train doctors who are supposed to be working in our community hospitals in our more rural areas. So if that's not translating to enough OBs, we have the tools. They might take a little time, but we need these services. We need what kind of signal. We've already watched the dismantling of Burbank Hospital. I think that this is a larger conversation we've been having about UMass Memorial Health's role in North Central Mass with the Health Alliance hospitals. Right? We watched the dismantling of Fitchburg Hospital, saying, oh, you will get better services if we consolidate them with Leominster. We've watched the erosion of services at Clinton. I'm just so worried about what this means for our region if we accept a reality where staffing is a challenge and leads to the closure. Like, everything's on the table. Everything. And they, like I said, I truly believe they've orchestrated all of their said staffing challenges, and we can already see it happening in other departments. This is not the end for them. They will keep doing this until we are essentially Burbank. I mean, Burbank has
a beautiful cancer center, but not much else. And that's sad.
And this is the question we've been posing to the Department of Public Health and Governor Healey's administration is, at what point do you pull so many services away that you're no longer a hospital, right? You have to, in order to become a hospital and get that nonprofit status in Massachusetts, you have to show what essential services you're providing to the community. At what point have you pulled all of those away? That you're no longer, do you get to call yourself a hospital anymore?
Yeah, that's so true.
And so we're really having those conversations to hope that we're Massachusetts. We can do we can do the impossible. We do it every day. And if we're not doing it now when we're calling upon other communities to send pregnant people to us, right? Like for services, for maternal health care services, we got to make sure that we have services for them. So I just want to thank you for taking the time. I want to thank everyone in Leominster and the surrounding communities who have been stepping up and sharing their personal stories, sharing all the ways that Leominster's Birthing Center has been an asset to your family, has saved lives. We know that from all of our family's experiences. They have been there on some of the hardest days of our loved ones in a really, really scary time. And so we're not done yet. There's still some time before September 23rd, and we're doing everything that we can to work with the Department of Public Health, work with Governor Maura Healey and her team, and work with the hospital. We hope that Leominster Hospital and UMass Memorial Health will reverse their decision. They do not need to close the birthing center on September 23rd. And so we're hoping that they'll come back with the community to figure out what is a workable solution. We have all of the providers who want to keep these services here in this community, and a community that absolutely needs it. So thank you for tuning in. If we have any more updates, be sure to follow Leave Labor in Leominster. On Facebook, they have over 1,000 folks who are following the page, and it has been really helpful for me because we have gotten a lot of attention all across the state, I think, because it resonates with folks that they could be next, right? If this birthing center really does close. And so we've got another month to really push the hospital administration to keep this birthing center open. If you have stories that you want to share, if you want to get connected, reach out to me, reach out to Leave Labor in Leominster. There's so many ways that you can still get involved. And I just want to thank you all for everything that you've been doing, because it's working. And just, it's really sad that we have to unite around this, but I have never seen the community as united than on this issue. So thank you for everything that you're doing, and we'll see you next month.